1, 2.
Second down, Fields. It's intercepted.
1, 6.
And the Tigers are not going to be dethroned tonight.
Looking back on it, it was really just heartbreak. Don't want to feel like that again.
We had a heck of a game with them last year, and doubt it'll be anything different.
Spins and gets to the end zone. Touchdown, Clemson.
Every game for us is a statement.
We deserve to be in the playoff?
Buckeyes are flexing.
Yes.
That'll be a quick study for us. There's only 6 games, so.
What was your first reaction when you saw the matchup?
This could be one of the greatest stories in the history of college football.
The college football playoffs kicking off tomorrow on New Year's Day. So now let's welcome in college football expert and our friend, Paul Feinbaum. Paul, look, we have to start with Clemson because we just found out they're going to be without their offensive coordinator, Tony Elliott, when they take on Ohio State. Dabo Swinney looked very confident about that fact, despite all of that, when he got off the plane yesterday. But I want to ask you, what problems could this cause for Trevor Lawrence and the Tigers?
I think it's one of communication and familiarity. I've seen this happen before a couple of years ago in the national championship game, Shirley. Alabama was facing Clemson, and as only Nick Saban could do, he fired Lane Kiffin a couple of days before the game. Now, remember, Kiffin had already taken a job as a head coach somewhere else, so it was a little bit crazy. But Jalen Hurts, the quarterback, had a tough day, even though it came down to the final play, because he was used to that on-the-field communication with Kiffin. And I think you could see the same thing here with Trevor Lawrence and Tony Elliott. Tony Elliott is one of the best offensive coordinators in the country. We all know Trevor Lawrence is one of the greatest quarterbacks we've seen in modern times. So you have to think it could be an issue, especially this late in the game. And we're trying to find edges any way we can to find an edge for Ohio State, and I think this becomes one.
Yeah, Dabo said that he didn't vote Ohio State into his top 10 because of their schedule. So what do you make of that, and will that have any impact on the game?
Dominic, I don't think it's going to have a big impact. I mean, Dabo is just a walking billboard maker for the opponents, and it hasn't seemed to slow him down. I know he wants to be the enfant terrible of college football by saying all this crazy stuff, but we all know about how we got to this point. Dabo Swinney's vote, frankly, doesn't matter. It's a coach's poll. It has no bearing on what happens or what ultimately brought us to the college football playoff. And I just find it to be absurd that he is coming up with this now. It's his right, though. I mean, you can't get too mad. It's his ballot, and you know, his stipulations are you have to play X number of games, but that's not how the Big Ten decided to do it. And I know we've already litigated this conversation many months ago, but you know, ultimately I think the big question is, does that schedule affect Ohio State? After only playing 6 games, is that a disadvantage for them versus what Dabo Swinney has said? I mean, Dabo's given this game a little bit of a off-the-field character in terms of the back and forth. We're trying to make it as interesting as possible, Dominique, and that's certainly one of the most interesting aspects of it. But I'm not sure it's going to change one thing on the field.
And Paul, our draft expert Todd McShay recently dropped quarterback Justin Fields, who plays for Ohio State, from number 2 to number 9. So how much pressure would you say is on Fields to perform at a high level against this high-powered Clemson defense?
He has not had a great year, and I think some of it is the inconsistency of the Big Ten schedule. There was a lot of stopping and starting because of their 21-day COVID protocol, and you know, he got off to a good start, then he struggled. He did not have a particularly good game against Indiana. He wasn't great at times in other games, and I think some of that was the inconsistency of playing. And he also had a thumb injury in the last game. So I think there are a lot of eyes on Justin Fields. Remember when the season began, there was a battle, there was a conversation. Who will be the better choice in the NFL draft, Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence? That debate has gone away. I don't think it's over for Justin Fields, and I frankly don't think how he plays in this game will determine his draft. I think that's going to be more in terms of need and especially how he performs in the combine. But he is a very good quarterback, and I don't think anyone should lose sight of that in spite of what's happened during this rather bizarre season.
All right, I'm going to bring you some more coaches' quotes, Paul. Moving on to the other game, Brian Kelly, he said that him and his team have nothing to prove at this point. How should the Notre Dame fans feel about that? And do you agree?
I don't agree. I mean, Dominique, this is Notre Dame we're talking about. I mean, they're the biggest name in college football history. And I know a lot of young people, think it's all about Clemson and Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma. But Notre Dame, thinks they invented college football, and in some ways they did. And for the head coach at Notre Dame to try to downplay the fact, we haven't won a national championship in 30 years, and we're just happy to be here. I mean, I know that's not exactly what he said. I think what Brian Kelly is trying to do is lower the expectations. And make it more palatable for his players, try not to put any more pressure on them. But you cannot erase the facts. And the facts are very clear that Notre Dame has been awful on a big game setting. Alabama beat them by 28 at the end of the 2012 season. And quite frankly, being on the field that night, you looked at them in warm-ups, and you were surprised it was only 28. I mean, you were talking about men versus boys. I mean, Alabama looked like a professional team, and Notre Dame looked like a middling college team, but just from the athleticism, that has improved. I mean, Brian Kelly has done a great job of bringing this program back from 5 years ago when they had a losing record, and a lot of people thought he should be run off. They've been in the playoffs twice, but that still doesn't excuse the fact that they're not competitive on this big stage. The only thing Brian Kelly has going for him is he does have that big win at Notre Dame this year against Clemson, but he let it get away in the rematch 2 weeks ago, and it's very likely we're going to see the same thing. Dominique, you look at the matchups in this game, and it's hard to find an edge for Notre Dame, other than the fact that they are the University of Notre Dame. Alabama beats them at every step, right across the field. And that's why the line, which is more than 20 points, is the biggest in the college football playoff history.
Wow, yeah, Alabama favored to win the entire championship. So Notre Dame absolutely with something to prove tomorrow. Paul, we are heading into the new year, so I want to know, what is your bold sports prediction for 2021?
I'm going to keep it in the college sports rank, and I think this is the year, Charlie, that the college athlete finally gets its due on two fronts. There's a Supreme Court case coming down the road that is dealing with the college athlete and the status of the amateurism, and there's also the NIL, the name, image, and likeness bill that we are hoping is going to finally get through Congress. We're starting to see it pop up in many state legislatures. And it's about time. And I know, Dom, Dominique, you're probably nodding your head, because I think we're finally going to see the athlete recognized and given his just due.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely long overdue.
Paul,
we need some good news to start off 2021. Yeah, we all hope you're right, Paul. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Year. All right,
Happy New
let's
Year,
move on.
guys.
We have to
it.
talk about what's happening tomorrow. It's the college football playoff semifinals, New Year's Day on ESPN and the ESPN app. Number 1, Alabama taking on number 4, Notre Dame in the Rose Bowl game presented by Capital One. Our coverage beginning 4 p.m. Eastern. And then it's on to number 2, Clemson, and number 3, Ohio State in the All-State Sugar Bowl. And let's not forget to talk about what's coming up right here on First Take. The Chiefs are number 1, but not necessarily invincible. The guys debate which AFC squad has the best chance to dethrone Kansas City. Stay with us.